So you see this photo right here? Ronda Rousey and Francis Ngannou. Two massive names, two massive stars that were in the UFC at one point. And now they are fighting for MVP promotions live on Netflix in what I think is going to be one of, if not, the biggest MMA event of 2026. Jake Paul and MVP Promotions, they're putting it together, man. And I knew as soon as the PFL let go of Francis Ngannou, he was going to end up fighting for MVP Promotions on this massive card headlined by Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. And we know that Ronda and Dana, they were talking about possibly doing it in the UFC. Things didn't really work out. And now here we are, and Ronda Rousey just went off at the press conference when talking about the UFC, fighter pay, Dana's involvement, the White House card. We're going to break it all down in this very video, but that is not all, right? We're going to take a look at what she had to say, but John Jones is wanting to be out of his contract. He wants the UFC to let him go. We're going to take a look at what Francis had to say, what Tom Aspinall had to say, and then what I tweeted, kind of giving my thoughts on what is going on with the UFC fighter pay and all this kind of stuff going on, and I'll even piggyback off of it and give more of my thoughts throughout this video. But really, you are looking at a giant thorn in the rear end of Dana White in the UFC, because you have two of the biggest stars that they have ever had, one of the biggest heavyweight stars in Francis Ngannou, who it didn't end well. Francis was not going to be bullied by the UFC, and he moved on, and he has got the bag, dog. People were saying Francis fumbled. He didn't fumble anything. Went out there and boxed Tyson Fury, boxed Anthony Joshua. Whether he won or lost, it didn't matter. He got paid, man. Francis is doing dang good. Right, in the UFC, they are lowballing their top fighters. They're lowballing fighters. Right, so we're going to go over it all, but this, to me, is two fighters that are leading a movement and a charge in a way, and they are getting very vocal and very loud about what is going on. And I believe that this is the noisiest it has ever been surrounding the UFC and fighter pay and what is really going on. We're going to break it down in this video. So first, let's start with the clip of Ronda Rousey. She went on a rant about UFC's fighter pay. The UFC is one of the worst places to go. Their champions like Valentina are selling pictures of their on OnlyFans. They just got $7.7 billion. There's no reason they can't pay their athletes. Let's take a listen. Valentina catching some strays, man.
It's just not about putting on the best fights possible anymore. Dana isn't the owner, and he isn't calling the shots, and he isn't running things the way that he wants, because he's an employee of the company. It was a big mistake of theirs to not let him just run things the way that he always has. Oh, he knows the White House card sucks.
So Dana basically, from what I'm taking from what she's saying here, is what, he's basically a puppet. They sold off the UFC. Dana's still around, and he's basically a puppet, and everyone's behind the scenes kind of pulling all the strings, and Dana just kind of goes out there and is just the talking head. Is that what's going on here? It's kind of what it sounds like.
He knows that they were pushing this for over a year, and it fell extremely short of expectations. I mean, he was so upset about it. He was talking about a fight falling out the day before. You know, it's I can guarantee you he's not happy with it either. It used to be that
So the White House card, we all know, it's still a good card. But at the end of the day, the way Dana was building this thing up, we were expecting the greatest card we have ever seen. And what the UFC put together for the White House card is obviously not the greatest card that we have ever seen. So Dana's kind of involvement of going on, we're hearing these rumblings. We're hearing from Ronda here. We've kind of heard before that Dana really isn't involved with too much anymore. So is it the fact that Dana's just basically a puppet and everyone's pulling the strings behind the scenes? He just kind of goes out there and is the talking head? Is that what's going on here? I mean, because that's almost what this is sounding like. Now, again, I don't know, man. This whole thing is so wild, and we are clearly seeing a massive shift under the Paramount era. A massive shift. And the under-delivering of the White House card is just, it is absolutely wild. It's absolutely wild, man.
UFC was the best place that you could come in combat sports to make a living and be paid fairly, and now it's no longer, it's one of the worst places to go. It's one of the, it's why so many of their top athletes are leaving to go and find pay elsewhere. It's why their champions like Valentina are selling pictures of their titties on OnlyFans. You know, like these people are, a lot of them at the ground level, they can't support their families. They're living poverty level, fighting full time.
Now, these are things that we have heard for a while about fighters. And I know in the MMA community joke around, that's the best we could do is 10 and 10, kid. But in a way, like, that's real, man. Like, we don't know exactly the specific numbers per se, but you get fighters like the big names, the big stars like Ilya, Islam, Hamza, like obviously they're being taken care of, Alex Pineda. But the other fighters, like the average fighter, like what are they making? What are they making? Almost like peanuts, man. And you look at these other pro leagues and it's been foul for so long, man. And obviously these are things that have been talked about, but it feels like it is getting noisy and even noisier around the UFC, especially since this whole Paramount era has kind of kicked off. And you have people up here like Ronda Rousey, massive names in the fight game. And when's the last time Ronda's fought? Ronda is still a massive name. And that's the thing about Ronda. Knows how to market herself, knows how to promote, right? And she's going to speak her mind. And she obviously went up here and people were saying, all they did was talk about the UFC. They are up here on a massive platform, just throwing shade at the UFC, just kind of airing it out. Airing it out, man.
This company just got $7.7 billion. There's no reason that they can't afford to pay their athletes at least a living wage.
I'm happy I'm out of that. That's all what I can say.
Thank you. So Francis pretty much just let Ronda do all the ranting, but Francis Ngannou, man, you know that he's been done. He's been done for a while. All the back and forths with Dana White saying all the things that he said and then walking back comments. Like Francis was done a long time ago. And people that say Francis fumbled the bag, what did he fumble? Please explain. Oh, so he barely fought in the PFL? It wasn't even so much about that. It allowed him to get free from the UFC, move on, and take on massive boxing matches, regardless of whether he won or lost. Francis got paid, man. He absolutely got paid, and now here he is fighting on Netflix for MVP Promotions, and I would imagine they're taking very good care of him, wouldn't you think? So this is huge. You have two of the biggest stars the UFC has had, especially in the heavyweight division for Ngannou, and one of the biggest stars, period, in Ronda Rousey, one of the pioneers of women's MMA. This is absolutely massive, and you know the UFC in the back of their mind. They're not going to publicly say it. We've heard what Dana's kind of had to say. They are seething that this is happening live on Netflix, a massive app, a massive platform for Jake Paul and MVP Promotions, man. This whole thing is nuts. But listen to what Ronda Rousey was kind of saying about Dana White. Right? Let's take a quick listen to this.
Ronda, you mentioned Dana White, all the love and respect you had for him. Ultimately, you couldn't make a deal. Did those failed negotiations lead to some bitterness that led you to publicly criticize them yesterday on social media?
No, not at all. He was the one that, when they weren't able to offer me, a respectable deal under the streaming model, he was the one that was like, I want you to make as much money as possible. Don't stay here and take less for me. He gave me his blessing to go out and do it on my own.
So again, we know Ronda and Rousey, they go way back. They have a great relationship. I still don't think that Dana, I don't know how much of a fan he is, of this whole ordeal. I'm sure he would love for this to be in the UFC, but what is going on behind the scenes, man? What is Dana's involvement? Because what we're hearing from Ronda and some of the other rumblings that we're hearing, is he just literally a puppet at this point? Like everyone else is doing everything, and then he just kind of walks out there and is the face because, it's Dana White. And then behind the scenes, Dana really, it's just everybody else making these calls, and he's just kind of like, whether he agrees or disagrees, they're like, this is what it is, get out there and be Dana White. That's kind of what that's almost kind of what this is sounding like, man. This is nuts.
And if anyone's been his apprentice, on how to be a promoter, it's been me.
Man,
and after I let him know before
I wonder if
anybody else that I had gone to Netflix, and I wanted to, I didn't want him to be upset with me. And he was like, I could never be upset with you. I love you so much. I want you to do great. I want this to be successful. He's always been my friend first before anything else. And I think that most of my criticism...
I hope that that's true. I imagine that that's true, right? This is what she's saying. I'm just, again, Dana White they possibly could have had this fight in the UFC. Things didn't really work out. So now Ronda's going here. Like, how happy is he? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying.
Criticisms of the UFC now is because Dana isn't the owner and he isn't calling the shots and he isn't running things the way that he wants, because he's an employee of the company now. He's not an owner. And So
is he a puppet?
I think it was a big mistake of theirs to not let him just run things the way that he always has.
Do you think he was upset when he saw your comments yesterday on social media? You mentioned that he wasn't upset with you for
Ronda
taking
really
this
like pointing to.
Oh, he knows the White House card
TKO
sucks. Like
element.
he knows that they were pushing this for over a year, and it fell extremely short of expectations. I mean, he was so upset about it. He was talking about a fight falling out the day before. You know, it's I can guarantee you he's not happy with it either.
She keeps her eye on everything, huh?
He's the one that taught me through example to speak my mind.
So I know we heard a little bit of that in the other clip. So this to me, what I'm taking from this is that there's other people behind the scenes. They're the ones making the decisions. They're the ones calling the shots. And Dana's just kind of the face that just shows up and get out there, Dana. Everybody knows you. And there you go. Like, so how much involvement does Dana actually have these days? Right? I don't know. That's where things are getting so interesting to me, man, because it feels like we're consistently hearing different things and hearing this from Ronda. We know she's close with Dana. They have a great relationship. I'm curious to see what Dana is going to have to say after Ronda has went up here and spoken her mind, man. And that's how Ronda has always been, which I always respect. So getting up there, big platform, kind of laying it all out there. But listen, all that Ronda is having to say here, and just what was going on with Jon Jones the other day. Jon asked the UFC to release him from his contract after everything I've given to the UFC, the years, the title defenses, the fights. Hearing that I'm done is disappointing. If the UFC truly feels like I'm done, then I respectfully ask to be released from my contract today. And this is the whole thing from Jon Jones. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this, but this was his statement. This was posted by Championship Rounds. It was on Jon's Twitter. They just took it and, put it into a post here. The bottom line is Dana White was up there saying kind of his side and his explanation, and none of it made any sense, man. It's like, well, we weren't negotiating with Jones, and then we were kind of negotiating with Jones. Like, don't quote me on exactly what he was saying, but it was basically like that. It was like he was like contradicting himself back and forth on, well, you were talking to him, but there was no offer. He wasn't going to be a part of the White House. Like, I don't know about that, man, because a while ago, don't you remember when he was on Nelk? And he was talking about, what could headline the White House card? And he was like, Aspinall versus Jones. That's the dream, or something like that. Now, obviously, times went by. Things have changed, right? We know that things have kind of been dicey behind the scenes with Jon. My question is, what is the truth, man? What is the truth? Because I have this weird feeling that we've been getting kind of misled when it comes to Jon Jones and what is actually going on with these fights behind the scenes. So Jon Jones, is kind of standing up for himself, man, and it's absolutely insane that a guy who was looked at as the greatest of all time, and whether you think he's actually the GOAT or not, he's without question one of, if not the greatest of all time, right? Topic for a different video. But the GOAT, man. Like, this is the people who look at as the greatest of all time, and not just in MMA, but in combat sports, period, and the UFC is playing hardball with this dude financially. And a lot of that, I feel like, has to do with the Paramount era. So how much of it is Dana? How much of it is what's going on behind the scenes? That's what is so interesting to me, man. This is absolutely wild. And then you have Francis Ngannou coming out in support of Jon Jones as he asked to be released from his UFC contract. You deserve that $30 million after everything you've done for the sport, and they should be rolling out the red carpet for you. Watching this story unfold yesterday was very interesting. I have lots to say, but for now, Johnny boy, if you manage to get your freedom, then let me know you deserve that $30+ million after everything you've done for the sport, and they should be rolling out the red carpet for you. Could you imagine if Jake Paul MVP Promotions on Netflix was able to put Francis Ngannou versus Jon Jones together? They're actually the ones that are able to deliver the heavyweight fight that we've always wanted to see. Now, I doubt it happens because I don't think the UFC is going to be releasing Jon Jones. I mean, I would be shocked. It's almost like the Bengals, like Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's, they're going to get rid of him, man. They're going to move on from, they're not moving on from an elite quarterback in Joe Burrow. You think that Dana White and the UFC and whoever is actually making these decisions or whatever's actually going on, you think they're going to sit back and go, yeah, we're just going to get rid of Jon Jones? And they know that that's a possibility. They don't want that to happen, dog. So to me, they're not releasing Jon Jones. It's going to be interesting to see if they can actually figure something out for Jones. But the fact that they can't pay Jones, we're going to get to that in a second. Let's listen to what Tom Aspinall had to say, because this is 1,000% accurate, man. It was great to hear Tom kind of stand up here and say some things.
Wow. Well, my reaction to that, and this is going to probably be crazy to a lot of people listening, but why is the UFC not giving Jon the respect he deserves financially? That's crazy.
100%. And for Tom to say that, I mean, Tom's a nice guy, and this is just the type of dude he is. But seriously, like, for Tom to be saying this, like a guy who's kind of looked at as a rival of Jones, even he's saying it. But again, we know Tom's a nice guy. But the point is, I feel like if you ask any fighter in the UFC what they think on this, they're going to have the same or similar answer to Tom Aspinall, as are many people.
Crazy to me. Well, if anyone should be getting paid a lot in this sport, it should be John Jones for the stuff that he's done. And that's me. That's me saying that.
Yeah.
After the history that I've had with John Jones.
Are you surprised they're not giving it to him?
Well, they offered him 30 million to fight me, so why have they not offered it again? I don't understand.
And you're probably a $25 million fighter.
I would hope so. But those guys who we're talking about, Conor McGregor and John Jones and guys like that, like they bring in the other guy. Those are the guys who brought in the revenue for over 10 years. They need to be getting paid what they deserve, in my opinion.
100%, man. The Paramount deal, $7.7 billion, $1.1 billion per year. Why do you think the UFC is as big as it is? Oh, well, they're the promotion. They're the platform. Yeah, you don't think that, it's a two-way street. You don't think that the fighters have helped them get to where they are? John Jones, Ronda Rousey, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, Jorge Masvidal, Khabib Nurmagomedov, like all of the GSP, the list goes on and on and on, man, of these fighters. Alex Pereira, Ilia Topuria, Islam Makhachev, Hamzat Chimaev, Sean Strickland, these big names out there. Yes, the UFC is the brand. These are guys that are promoting and marketing themselves and also helping the sport as well. It's not just all the UFC. Obviously, they're the promotion, but it also is a two-way street. And we see the UFC kind of hold that over the heads of these fighters of like a bargaining chip, like you should just be happy to be in the UFC because where else are you going to go? So we could just kind of pay you whatever we feel like paying you. Basically, we get a hometown discount because where else are you going to go? That's the vibe I get these days.
Opinion. I think the guys need to get their money ready for my fight. If we're talking about 25 million, I think
that was my idea.
25 million. Get it ready because I'm ready to get that.
This whole thing, man, with Jones, Rousey, and Ngannou, just all of it together to me, man, I don't feel like it's ever been this noisy surrounding the UFC and fighter. But it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. Does it get anywhere? We'll see. The UFC's pretty good about not caring exactly what the fans and what the public and people have to say. They've made that very clear. Like, remember Dana with Diego Lopez and Volkanovski too, when no one wanted to see that? Well, you don't like it, don't watch it. Like, it's just, you see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's, Ronda, what she's saying, it's like, oh, well, is Dana a puppet? Is he this? Is he that? I still feel like Dana has some sort of involvement. I don't see how he's just completely, out of it completely. But I don't know, man. Honestly, I'm in the position where I don't really know what to believe at this point, other than the fact that I don't really trust much of what we are hearing, especially when it comes from Dana in the UFC. Something is going on behind the scenes, and a lot of it to me is this right here. Then this will kind of lead us into the end of the video. I think this perfectly describes the new UFC Paramount era now that the UFC got paid. It's hard to get up at 5 a.m. and run 5 miles when you're sleeping in silk pajamas. Love that quote, man. The UFC will always be the top dog in the MMA space. We're all fans and wanting the best to happen because we are massive fans of the fight game. It's obvious things have changed rapidly. The fights we want to see almost never happen, and I feel like the UFC is not willing to pay up for these guys. It also feels like they are icing and slow rolling the biggest names and not going to keep them active so they don't have to pay them. Conor Benn getting paid around $15 million in Zuffa boxing while having stars far bigger than him in the UFC probably not making anything like that is insane. We're seeing a massive shift here, and I don't know where it goes from here, but this has not been a good start to the Paramount era. The bottom line is, guys, the UFC that we have known in the Paramount era, it will not be the same. It will not be the same. That is the reality. They are trying to put on, someone commented below here, the UFC chased the purest, most epic fights to grow the sport organically. Now, under classic corporatism vibes, big corp plus state-like monopoly power, it's all about squeezing max short-term cash for shareholders. Fighters get crumbs, fans get diluted cards. The new Paramount era doesn't need the hardcore fan anymore. The sooner we all recognize this, the easier it is to get. The bottom line is this. The UFC is trying to cut corners at every angle they can. That's what I mean by icing and slow rolling fighters. If you can have your big name fight one time a year to where you only have to pay them once, and then you can have for these other headliners, guys that probably make quite a bit less, that's what they're probably going to do. That's the corporate angle, trying to save money. They already are getting paid, man. What's the incentive here? If you're a car salesman, right, for example, and you're making, I don't know, 30,000, I'm just throwing out numbers, 30,000 base pay, and they say, well, every car you sell, again, I'm just making this up, just making up numbers. Oh, well, you get $5,000 per car that you sell. Okay, well, if you go out there and you all of these cars, man, and you got this fire under you because you're like, man, I can make so much money. But then someone walks in and they say, we had a change in leadership. We're actually changing the way we do things around here. Forget the 30,000 base pay. We're just going to give you 100 grand. Are you going to be as motivated to necessarily go out there and move the inventory on the lot? Maybe some people will be like, yeah, I'll still, but there's also going to be less incentive is what I'm trying to get at. Maybe that's a good comparison, maybe not. The bottom line is the UFC got paid in the US. There's no more pay-per-views, which I love that, right? We just log on to the Paramount app. There it is, right? You still got pay-per-views in other places. I completely understand that. But the point is, the UFC is just slapping content products together, man. That's what they're doing. It doesn't feel like there's much strategy into the matchmaking. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of thought going into what these cards are actually, that are being put together. And I feel like we are no longer going to see the best fight the best. And all of the big fights that we want to see, are they really going to happen? We're hearing rumblings from Ilia Topuria, John Jones. It doesn't feel like the UFC, when it's time to have these massive fights, they are going to want to pay up. That's what it feels like, man. That's what it feels like. This is my opinion kind of on the whole situation. But to me, Ronda Rousey and Francis Ngannou and what they are doing in MVP promotions, I'm going to be very curious to see if Jake Paul and his team can continue to move forward and put on more MMA events to have some sort of competitor, at least to the UFC. Now, again, the UFC is the NFL, the NBA, the NHL of MMA, but it would be nice to have another option out there that is strong. They got money, they got financing, they got everything they need to go out here and try to compete somewhat with the UFC to be a little bit of a thorn in their rear end, man. At the end of the day, we love the UFC, we love the fight game, but it is very clear that since the Paramount era has kicked in, it truly feels like the sport is just absolutely falling apart. And what is going on behind the scenes? It's very interesting, man. What's going on with Dana? How much say does he actually have? Is Dana actually involved in what's going on? Or is he just some sort of puppet on a string? And everybody else is making the decision. They're like, get out there, Baldy, Mr. Krabs, right? Like, what's actually going on, man? So it was nuts to hear Ronda go out there and kind of air everything out. And it's going to be interesting to see if some reporters ask Dana what he thought of Ronda's comments, because I'm sure the UFC did not like that whatsoever. And again, this is a thorn in the side of Dana and the UFC. I'm excited to see how this whole thing plays out. But there's no question, man, in the Paramount era, things are quite a bit different. And it feels like things are heading downhill rather quickly. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor, please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. My first time doing a video style kind of like this in a while with a new setup. So if you enjoyed this, if you could subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you guys next time.